I used to love late-night trips to Burger King. It became my routine after long shifts at the car dealership. I relished the smell of fries and the comfort that came with being there. I wasn't expecting anything strange to happen. But looking back, it was unsettling. On my first visit, I settled into a booth, and I heard a soft humming from the kitchen. At first, I thought it was just the fryer. Then I noticed a shadow darting across the back. I froze for a second. I didn't want to seem too curious, so I shrugged it off. My heart felt heavy as I took a sip of soda. I went back every few days. Each trip felt stranger than the last. One night I got a weird order. It was a strange combo, something I didn't even recognize. I was confused and looked around. The guy at the counter smiled like nothing was wrong. "That's what you ordered," he said. I felt my stomach twist. Maybe I just didn't remember ordering it? Another visit, whispers started echoing from behind the counter. I looked around and saw no one back there. Just me and a few other puzzled customers. It felt like the employees vanished. I tried to push those thoughts aside as I took a bite of my burger. But I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Then there was that night around 2 a.m. The diner was quiet. A chill ran through me. I heard that humming again. It was louder this time. My heart raced as I glanced toward the kitchen. The lights flickered briefly, and that knot in my stomach tightened. Was I imagining things? The visits continued, and that heaviness lingered. I felt this dark presence watching me. I avoided eye contact with other customers, feeling paranoid and unsure. Was it just my imagination? The fries were tempting, but I felt uneasy. I even thought about stopping altogether, but I just couldn't resist. Then it happened. The last time I went, I was about to leave when I turned around suddenly. There was a tall figure standing behind me, just outside the light. My stomach dropped, and I felt a shiver run down my spine. When I turned back, the figure was gone. I thought I heard a whisper calling my name, but I couldn't be sure. I rushed out, my legs felt weak beneath me. I haven't stopped thinking about that night. Those strange experiences replay in my mind. I wonder if I should go back. The idea terrifies me. What if it happens again? But what if I am just overthinking it? Now each time I drive past Burger King, my heart races. I see the neon lights flickering in the dark. It pulls me in like it always did, but I haven't been back since. I think I'll just stay away. The fries aren't worth it anymore. I tried to ignore it. I really did. But the draw of that Burger King was hard to shake off. Each time I drove past, I felt that familiar pull, like a thread tugging at my mind. One day, I found myself parked outside, even as my stomach churned. I couldn't let fear win. I needed to know what was going on. So, I took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The bell jingled softly. It was surprisingly quiet inside, only a few late-night patrons scattered around. I settled into a booth again, hoping everything would feel normal. The moment I sat down, the humming returned. It was faint but unmistakable. It seemed to follow me, wrapping around me like a heavy blanket. I scanned the back, half expecting to see the shadow skimming the walls, but there was nothing. Just the flickering lights above me. Then I noticed the guy at the counter again. He had a familiar smile, the same one from before. I raised my hand to order, but something stopped me. A shiver ran down my spine as I remembered his words from my last visit. "That's what you ordered." What if he knew something I didn't? Suddenly, I didn't want to eat anything. That's when I saw it. A slip of paper poking out from under my plate. I hesitated before turning it over. Scrawled in messy handwriting were 2 words, "Leave now." My heart sank. Who had placed that there? I looked around, but no one seemed to pay attention. Panic surged through me. I grabbed the paper and stood up. The figure from last time flashed in my mind. What if it was back? The crowd felt suffocating, like they were all part of some shared secret. I needed to escape. I rushed toward the door, but my feet felt heavy. It was like time slowed. The humming grew louder, a cacophony in my ears. As I reached the exit, a voice called out from behind me. "You forgot your fries." I froze. Turning slowly, I saw the guy from the counter holding a bag. My breath caught. "I didn't order anything," I said, but he grinned wider. The light above him flickered, casting shadows that danced around his face. "It's on the house," he said, his voice almost too sweet. Then he gestured for me to come closer. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't move. What was in that bag? I took a step back, my heart racing. In that moment, I could feel the shadows creeping in, pushing me toward him. "Just take it," he said, his tone shifting ever so slightly. Before I knew it, I was out the door, breathless. I looked back, and the figure wasn't there anymore, but the unease clung to me like a second skin. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just escaped something terrible. As I drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The Burger King lights dimmed behind me, and the humming faded into silence. But I couldn't rid myself of that slip of paper. The warning echoed in my mind. I thought about going back, but now I had a reason to be afraid. I knew the fries weren't worth it. But what would happen if I stayed away? Would it stop? Or would something worse come after me? The next morning, I woke up with a sense of dread hanging in the air. I tried to shake it off with coffee, but the unease lingered. That slip of paper felt like it was burned into the back of my mind. I couldn't focus on anything else. Instead, I decided to ask around. I started with my friend Jenna. "Have you ever noticed anything weird about that Burger King?" I asked as we sat at a cafe. She raised an eyebrow. "I mean, it's a fast food joint, not a haunted house. What's wrong with it?" she replied, laughing lightly. But I wasn't joking. I told her about the humming and the guy behind the counter. I didn't mention the slip of paper, though. I didn't want to sound crazy. Jenna shrugged. "Maybe they just have a strange vibe. If it freaks you out, don't go back." That was easy for her to say. Every time I drove past, it felt like the building was calling for me. I needed more information. So that afternoon, I went online. I searched for any reports about strange occurrences at that Burger King. I found a local blog dedicated to spooky tales. Scrolling through, I found a post about the place, dated just last month. It caught my eye right away. The author claimed to have had an encounter with something they called the Laughing Man. A shiver ran through me as I read the details. People had reported seeing a shadowy figure lurking around the restaurant, making strange noises, almost like laughter. Then I saw a comment from someone named Eli. "I work there. You shouldn't go at night," it read, with a series of warning emojis. Other commenters chimed in, boasting how the fast food chain had a long history of odd happenings, from power outages to strange lights. Every story seemed to point to something sinister lurking beneath the ordinary surface. My heart raced. I had to go back. Not because I wanted fries, but because I needed answers. If Eli had more information, I had to find out who they were. I fought against the growing fear in my stomach, knowing that approaching the truth might be the only way to untangle this web. That evening I returned. The parking lot was nearly empty, shadows long under the dimming sky. As I stepped inside, the familiar hum washed over me, but I forced myself to take a seat. I felt eyes on me, but nobody appeared out of the ordinary. After a few moments, I noticed someone behind the counter who looked different, a tall figure with dark hair tied back, working quietly. I couldn't shake the feeling that might be Eli. My heart pounded as I debated whether to approach. In a moment of courage, I walked up to the counter. "Excuse me," I said, trying to sound casual. "Are you Eli?" The figure looked up, and a slow smile spread across his face. "Yeah, that's me. What's up?" Before I could respond, the lights flickered overhead, and a feeling of dread flooded over me again. "I heard some things about this place," I stuttered, but my voice trailed off. Then, everything went dark. I blinked into the sudden darkness, my heart racing. It felt like the world had been snuffed out in an instant. The hum that had surrounded me moments before vanished, leaving only an unsettling silence. I could feel the cold sweat forming on my brow. "Eli?" I called tentatively, hoping he could hear me. Silence answered back, and that unsettling feeling trickled back into my gut. It was so quiet that every small noise echoed. I instinctively stepped back, trying to feel my way around in the dark. My hands brushed against the counter, searching for anything solid. Then I heard it. A faint giggle, like a child's laughter but warped and sinister. It sent a chill down my spine. My eyes strained, trying to adjust to the darkness, but it was thick, clinging to me. I steadied my breathing and forced myself to think. Just then, the lights flickered back on, and I gasped. There were still people inside, but they weren't doing anything. They stood motionless, staring blankly ahead, almost as if they were waiting for something. My heart raced again, and I felt like I was suffocating under the weight of their unblinking gazes. "Eli?" I shouted louder this time, panic creeping into my voice. I spotted him behind the counter, his smile still plastered on his face, but now it seemed forced. "What just happened?" "They do that sometimes, it's part of the experience," he said, his voice detached, like he was reading from a script. I squinted at the patrons. "Experience? What are you talking about?" But before he could answer, the lights flickered again, and the atmosphere shifted unnervingly. A figure emerged from the back, a tall silhouette wrapped in darkness, moving in a way that seemed almost too fluid. Laughter rang out again, echoing through the space, and I felt a primal urge to run. "Leave now," Eli whispered urgently, his eyes darting towards the figure. I hesitated, grappling with disbelief and fear. Was this the laughing man? The memories from that blog flooded back to me. All those stories. Who is that?" I managed to stammer. "He's not supposed to be here." "You have to go," Eli insisted, but the words felt hollow. His smile faded, and in that moment, I realized he was just as afraid as I was. Before I could respond, the lights went out again. My pulse pounded in my ears, and I turned to run. But a heavy presence stopped me dead in my tracks. Someone was blocking the exit, a shadow amongst shadows, shimmering as if made of smoke. "Stay a while," the figure said, and I felt cold fingers of fear grip my throat. I lost all sense of time and reality. That's when I turned to Eli. "What do I do?" But there was no time for answers. The lights flickered back on, and in that moment, my breath caught. Eli's face was pale, his eyes wide. The laughing man stepped closer, and I could hear him whispering something, words I couldn't quite catch over the sound of my heart. That was when I saw it. Something slipped from the laughing man's fingers and landed at my feet. A slip of paper, just like the one I had found last night. I picked it up, and it felt heavy in my hand, as if it contained all the secrets of the Burger King. I squeezed it tight, knowing I was no longer just a bystander looking for answers. I was part of something much bigger, and I was running out of time. I stared at the slip of paper, my heart racing. The words danced before my eyes, but they didn't make sense. I glanced up, and the laughing man was closer now, his grin wide and twisted. Fear tied itself in knots in my stomach. I focused on Eli, hoping for some clarity. "Eli, what does it say?" I asked, but Eli's eyes were fixed on the laughing man, fear etched deep into his features. "Just run," he whispered, but his voice trembled. In that moment, clarity hit me. The stories I had read were real. This wasn't just some silly urban legend. The laughing man was here to play, and I was the unwilling participant. My hands still clutched the paper as I made a decision. I couldn't wait for Eli to save me. I had to get out. I turned and ran, dodging through the patrons who remained frozen in that unnatural stillness. Each step felt like I was moving through molasses. The exit loomed ahead, but the shadow blocking it shifted, like it could sense my panic. "Don't go," the laughing man called, his voice dripping with amusement. "The fun is just beginning." I hesitated, dread clawing at me. I had read that those who tried to escape would find themselves trapped in a loop of terror. Was I already too late? I sprinted for the door anyway, desperation giving me strength. As I reached the exit, the handle felt ice cold under my grip. I twisted it and pulled, but it wouldn't budge. No, no, no! I shouted, panic rising. I pulled harder, but it felt as if the door were glued shut. Let her out! Eli shouted, finally breaking his gaze from the figure. But the laughing man's laughter filled the space again, chilling me to the bone. The lights flickered, but this time, they began to dim instead of coming back on. Eli's face was a mixture of horror and determination. I'll find another way, he said, darting toward the back of the restaurant, searching for something, anything. I felt a pang of betrayal. Why was he leaving me? But I had no time to think. The shadowy figure advanced, now inches away. I could feel its energy wrapping around me, smothering much like the laughter that echoed all around, mocking me. Just as I thought all hope was lost, a noise broke the oppressive silence. It was faint at first, but I recognized it was the sound of screaming. The noise grew louder, and I turned to see a flickering light illuminating the kitchen area. In the chaos, I caught sight of the other patrons. Their eyes were wide, but one woman had moved. She was pushing forward, a determined look on her face. She ran towards me, and when she got close enough, I saw it wasn't just fear guiding her. "Help me!" she shouted, her voice cutting through my fraying nerves. "We need to break the cycle." Before I could respond, the laughing man turned sharply, his attention diverted. I glimpsed my chance. I ran toward the woman, whose frantic energy surged alongside mine. But before we could reach the exit, the lights went out again. Darkness swallowed us whole, but something else shifted in the air. I knew we were out of time. I couldn't see anything in the darkness. I was acutely aware of the laughing man's presence, his laughter echoing in my ears like a sinister lullaby. The screaming had stopped, replaced by an eerie quiet. I felt a rush of cold air, sending chills down my spine. "Where are you?" I called out, hoping for a response, but silence answered me instead. Panic began to rise again. This was what the stories warned about. The darkness could swallow me whole. "Stay close," I yelled, desperate to find the woman again. If she was still with me, maybe we had a chance. Just then, a low growl ripped through the stillness, causing my heart to skip a beat. It felt like the world had shifted around me, a dark entity coming to life. I strained my ears, trying to catch any sound. The faintest rustle to my right made me jump. "Who's there?" I whispered fiercely. "It's me." The woman's voice was right next to me. "We need to find Eli." He could still. Her words were cut off by a sudden flash of light. The restaurant flickered back to life, but only for a moment. I saw the laughing man standing just a few feet away, his grin sharper and more menacing than before. He stepped aside to reveal a series of doors lining the back wall, doors that hadn't been there before. "Choose wisely," he taunted, his laughter rising again. "Run!" I grabbed the woman's wrist and started moving before I even knew where we were going. The flickering lights cast shadows that danced wildly, making the hallway seem like a twisted maze. I could hear Eli's voice calling out, but it came from different directions, as if he was trapped between layers of reality. The laughing man's laughter followed behind us, echoing, taunting. "The exit is just a choice away. What will you choose?" We rushed to the first door, but it swung open to reveal a narrow stairwell spiraling down into darkness. My instincts screamed at me to turn back. I glanced at the woman, who looked just as uncertain. "I can't," she whispered, her face pale. "Neither can I admitted, the choice weighing heavily on me. Just then, a window on the other side burst open, letting in a rush of cool night air. I moved toward it, desperate for an escape. The moment I reached the window, I heard something shatter behind me. I turned, heart pounding, to see one of the doors swinging wide open, a deep, dark void filling the space. "Don't think too long," the laughing man's voice echoed from somewhere near the doorway. "I'll keep the door open, if you want to stay." Suddenly, I remembered something I had read about him. The choices weren't just about the doors, they were about who you were willing to save. "Eli!" I shouted, my voice scratching against the walls. Where are you? Relief flooded me when I heard his response, faint but clear. I'm here. Then everything went dark again. In the pitch blackness, the realization hit me like a blow. We weren't just trying to escape, we had to confront him and this twisted game. The laughing man had given us a choice, but it no longer felt like my decision alone. I had to face whatever lay ahead. The shadows pulsed around me, alive with menace. I took a deep breath. Let us go find Eli, I said, suddenly resolute. It felt like the only thing I could do now. Okay, the woman replied, determination edging into her tone. As I turned toward the direction of Eli's voice, I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was coming next would pull every last thread of my sanity. But I had no choice. We had to break the cycle, or it would break us first. The shadows surrounded us. I clenched the woman's wrist tightly, the grip becoming a lifeline. We need to move, I urged, my voice low but firm. Eli's voice called out again, desperate yet faint, reverberating in the enclosed space. Over here. I need help. Keep talking, Eli. I yelled back, straining to pinpoint his location. The laughing man's laughter echoed, wrapping around us like a sinister fog. I hated that sound, the mocking quality pulling at my resolve. Which way? The woman asked, fear creeping into her voice. I hesitated, torn between instinct and the threat hanging in the air. The walls felt like they were closing in, pushing their way into my mind. We have to go towards his voice. I took a deep breath and moved forward, dragging her behind me as I navigated the darkness. With every step, I fought against the creeping dread that wormed its way into my thoughts. Do you think he's okay? She asked, her words tinged with doubt. I couldn't bear to contemplate the answer. Eli can handle himself, I lied, more to reassure myself than her. We dodged around debris, the ground uneven beneath our feet, splintered wood and broken glass crunched under us. Each sound made my heart race more than it already was. I could hear the laughing man's laughter closing in, teasing and relentless. Poor Eli, all alone, his voice echoed. Will you really save him, or will you leave him to me? Shut up. I spat back, anger fueling my steps. But there was an unsettling truth in his words. Could I really rescue Eli, or was I risking everything? Down this path, the woman urged. Her grip was strong as she pulled me toward what seemed like a narrow corridor. I hesitated for a moment, glancing down at the doors we passed. Each one looked more ominous than the last, and I could feel the weight of their choices pressing on my chest. Eli! I shouted again. Keep calling. Harder than it looks when you're being chased by a maniac, he replied, humor cutting through the fear. That was when I saw it, a faint glow at the end of the corridor. Bright enough to pierce the darkness. That has to be him. I shouted with renewed hope. I pushed forward, and as we approached, the glow pulsed like a heartbeat. Suddenly, the laughter grew louder, more distorted, and I felt a rush of wind. It knocked me back, almost throwing me off my feet. I stumbled, keeping my balance just long enough to catch a glimpse of the laughing man, his figure swirling in the shadows, eyes glinting with malice. Did I say choose wisely? He said, his voice dripping with cruel delight. Looks like you've chosen to play, but are you ready for the consequence? We were so close, but my heart sank as I recognized the glow had transformed. It shifted, receding into darkness. Eli's voice faded along with it. No! I shouted, moving forward as panic clawed at my throat. Just as I reached for the source of light, everything turned black again. This time, I didn't hear Eli's voice anymore. Why can't I reach him? I breathed, fear like ice settling in my gut. I felt completely alone. Then, a new sound, soft, almost muffled. A door creaking open behind me. I turned, and the air hummed with tension. What now? A choice? The laughing man's laughter rang out again, deep and ominous, as the door swung wider. Do you dare enter? I had no idea where to go next. I took a cautious step toward the door, feeling the chill of uncertainty wash over me. The laughing man's taunts echoed in my ears, but curiosity pulled me forward. I needed to find Eli, and standing still wouldn't he help. The gap widened, revealing a dimly lit room. A heavy musty scent invaded my senses. I peered inside, and the door creaked as if urging me to enter. I glanced back, half expecting the shadows to pounce, but only darkness greeted me. I had to make a choice. Eli, I whispered, the name feeling like a prayer. I crossed the threshold, the floorboards creaking beneath my feet, the shadows curling around me like cold fingers. My heart raced, my instincts screaming for me to turn back, but I pushed through that, gathering every ounce of courage. Inside, the room was empty, at least on the surface. The walls were lined with faded posters, all featuring strange symbols and warnings that made little sense. I scanned the room for any sign of Eli or a clue that would lead me back to him. My fingertips brushed the wall. The texture felt wrong, like peeling paint betraying a hidden truth. I squinted into the corners, shadows dancing playfully, mocking my fear. Eli? I called again, my voice trembling. Silence met me. I took a few steps deeper, trying to locate the source of the faint, drumming sound. It wasn't he, the laughing man, but something deeper, more primal, echoing through the walls. Then I saw something shift, just a flicker, but it caught my attention. My eyes darted to the source, a small door on the opposite wall, slightly ajar. It trembled slightly, as if something on the other side was eager to escape. My heart pounded. The last thing I wanted was to face another entity in this godforsaken place, but I couldn't leave without knowing. Maybe Eli was inside. Let us go, the woman beside me urged, her breath quickening. I thought her voice was more than just fear, there was urgency, perhaps even dread. Do you think it's safe? I asked, searching her eyes. She was just as lost as I was, but the hope started to flicker. What if Eli's in there? She nodded, biting her lip. We have to try. If not, we're stuck here. I turned back to the door, adrenaline pouring through my veins. Holding my breath, I pushed it open just enough to peek inside. The room was engulfed in shadows, the only light coming from a tiny bulb flickering above. There were no shadows dancing as there had been before. There was only stillness, a chilling promise of what lay ahead. That was when I caught a faint whisper, like someone was trying to tell me something, drawing me deeper into the unknown. Something told me it was Eli's voice. My pulse quickened. Just a little further, I thought to myself, steeling my resolve. I can't lose him. I stepped through the door. The moment I crossed the threshold, it slammed shut behind me. The air in the new room felt thick, almost suffocating. I groped around, searching for something tangible, anything solid to hold on to. My heart raced. This darkness was different. It felt alive. I took a shaky step forward, barely able to see past my own nose. Eli? I called out again, my voice barely a whisper. The shadows didn't reply. Instead, I could hear that strange drumming sound becoming louder, like a heartbeat echoing in a tomb. It was disorienting, making it hard to distinguish if it was real or merely a product of my imagination. I strained to listen, hoping to catch another hint of Eli's voice. A shiver rippled down my spine. Then it came again, a faint whisper, more distinct this time. I turned towards the source, moving deeper into the room. The whispers danced around me, sometimes sounding like Eli's name, other times fragmented and incoherent. My fingers brushed against the wall, trying to guide myself. The surface was unnaturally smooth, except for an occasional bump that jutted out like a misplaced tooth. I pressed down on one of the protrusions, and suddenly, a panel shifted beneath my fingers. The sound of gears turning clicked loudly, almost like a mockery of my fear. No sooner had I leaned in closer when the wall slid open, revealing a hidden alcove. Inside, dim light flickered against dark metal. A small pedestal sat at the center, housing what looked like an old music box, eerily ornate, with carvings that twisted into strange figures. My pulse quickened. Something about it felt significant. What is that? The woman asked, stepping beside me. I had almost forgotten she existed. We were both rooted by the same mix of fear and curiosity. Should we touch it? I hesitated, the drumbeat in my chest matching the music box's rhythm. What if it's connected to Eli? Maybe it holds the key to finding him. I reached out, my fingers trembling. Just as I was about to lift the box, the room suddenly jerked, as if it were alive and angry. The flickering light sputtered and went out. We were plunged into darkness. My breath caught in my throat. "Stay close," I said, grabbing her arm. It felt wrong in the dark, like we were being watched. I could hardly breathe for the fear that surged through me. "Eli is in here somewhere, but I can't feel him." A sharp sound pierced the silence. It was a crash, like something heavy falling, followed by a quiet rustle. An urgency washed over me. I couldn't stand still, not now. I needed to find Eli quickly, or we might never escape. "Do you hear that?" I asked, straining to listen over the sound of our shallow breaths. Before she could respond, I followed the noise, weaving through the pitch. My mind raced with scenarios. What if it was Eli? What if it was something worse? Suddenly, the shadows exploded into motion. A cold light flicked on, illuminating the room for just a split second. And that's when I saw a figure standing in the corner, half hidden in the darkness. My breath hitched as it turned towards us, a smile stretching wider than it should have. "You shouldn't be here," it said, and everything inside me screamed to run. But I was frozen. Eli was somewhere in this nightmare, and I couldn't leave without him. The figure stepped forward, its grin growing wider. "Looking for something?" it taunted, and I felt my heart pound in my chest, each beat resonating with the underlying tension in the room. "Eli!" I shouted, my voice trembling. "Where is he?" The creature chuckled darkly. "Well, he played his part and became part of the game, didn't he?" The shadows shifted, showing glimpses of what could have been Eli's face, lost, frightened, yet eerily calm. "No, no!" I shook my head, desperation clawing at me. "This is all wrong." "Is it?" The figure mused, its tone almost playful. "You were the one who came seeking answers, weren't you? But in this game, what you find isn't always what you're looking for." The walls trembled with laughter, real laughter echoing through the space. I felt a surge of anger mixed with fear, but deep down, I knew I had to push through the dread, before it consumed me entirely. "What do you want from us?" The words spilled out before I could think. The figure leaned close, its form dark and shifting like smoke. "You have a choice to make," it said, almost too sweetly. "Either join us, or leave it all behind." "Leave him alone!" the woman beside me cried. "We want to let you take him." The figure recoiled slightly, then laughed, a sound that echoed against the room's jagged edges. "Ah, but the choice is yours to make. Save yourself, or save him. The clock is ticking." A cold wind swept through the alcove, and I glanced back at the music box, the only source of light there, illuminating the chaos around us. It hummed softly, almost beckoning, whispering promises of answers and possible escape. "Let us open it," I said, my resolve strengthening. "If it holds the answers, we need it." "No!" the figure shrieked, its voice growing fierce. "You'll regret it. The truth isn't always what you want it to be." Ignoring its warning, I took a step closer to the pedestal, my heart racing. I resisted the urge to look back, even the shadows seemed to vibrate with anticipation. I felt the woman's presence beside me, steady, she was ready too. Hands shaking, I lifted the lid of the music box. It creaked eerily, and a cascade of notes filled the air, weaving a haunting melody that twisted around us. The shadows seemed to pull back, if just for a moment, and I felt an energy surge through me. But then, the laughter returned, sharper this time. "You think that simple tune will save you?" A gust of wind spiraled wildly, forcing us back. The shadows clawed at the edges of the light, swarming, tightening their grip. "Eli!" I screamed into the chaos. The noise rolled like thunder. But I felt something stirring in the music, a tugging at the depths of my consciousness. "Stay close," I warned the woman as I fought against the impending darkness. The room's corners began shifting like a fever dream, the melody growing darker and dissonant. Just then, Eli appeared at the fringe of the light, his figure flickering like a dying flame. "Help me!" he cried, a voice filled with panic and urgency. "Eli!" I shouted back, clenching my fists. "Hold on!" He reached out toward us, desperation reflecting in his eyes. But the shadows pushed against me, whispering my doubts, urging me to look away. "Make your choice," the figure hissed, the room vibrating with its ferocity. "Do you save him or yourself?" "I'll save you both," I yelled over the cacophony, grasping the music box and feeling the warmth radiate from it, surging against the darkness. When I focused on the notes, chanting the melody in my heart, something cracked in the air. A rift opened, blinding light bursting forth as if the music unleashed a hidden potential. I sensed our connection tightening, drawing Eli closer. Suddenly, the laughter turned shrill and echoed around us. "No!" it howled in outrage. The shadows writhed, losing their form and substance. "Hold on!" I shouted, my voice breaking against the tumult, but it was too late. The wave of light surged, pulling Eli back into the fold. Then silence. The shadows retreated, and for the first time, I felt free. "What happened?" I whispered, each word heavy with uncertainty. The music box grew quiet, leaving an air of unresolved tension. The woman beside me blinked as the walls reshaped themselves. "Did we escape? Is it over?" But as the haze lifted, I found that we were back in the restaurant, the soft hum of fryers filling the air again, the chaotic tension seemingly wiped away. Yet I noticed the patron sat still, eyes glossed over and unseeing. Eli wasn't there. The familiar tune still echoed in my mind as I glanced back at the entrance. "Is it really over?" I asked, unsure. The woman looked around, her own confusion mirrored in her eyes. "What just happened?" I couldn't shake the sensation that this wasn't the end, merely the thin veil of a deeper unease that now lingered. I felt like we'd left something unfinished, an unsettling echo that might haunt the dusk of dark memories. As I stepped outside into the night, the Burger King neon lights flickered behind me. I could hear the faintest vestige of laughter in the distance, a reminder of what might still be lurking, waiting for the next unwitting seeker to enter. I shivered, knowing that questions lingered in the space between the known and unknown. "I just hope we never have to find out," I muttered quietly to myself. Yet deep down, I couldn't help but wonder, was this a closed chapter or just another beginning?